Is it working? Hello. Welcome to 99geek.ca. This is a book reading that's presented by 99% Geek. You can, I'm a writer. My name's Andrew Gatesy. Welcome if you're new. This is, I write novels. I've always wanted to write for television, but currently I write novels for my website, 99geek.ca. I release a chapter a month there, and people can subscribe on my Patreon for $1 a month and receive all my library of stuff. I have up to 5 books going now at a time, and over 1,000 pages of content, so that's pretty awesome. This is going to be a book reading that I've been doing. I've started a book reading podcast, and I started with the first book, which I released shortly after I was out of university, and I think it was 2014, maybe earlier than that. No, I was out of university earlier than that, like 2012 or something. But that's when I started. I finished this book in 2014. And then from there I created 99 Geek, and I created everything that followed, a whole bunch of series of things. So this is my first book that I ever released. It's technically the second book I wrote. My first book was a particularly, it wasn't very good. My grandma died saying it was the best book I ever wrote, but she wasn't right. This is technically a better book. It's still not as good as the stuff I've been writing lately. I've definitely improved as a writer, so don't judge me too much. But I think this book has a lot of merit, and it's certainly it's canon in the 99 Geek universe, shall we say. That spans multiple books that are all part of the same universe. So there's that. So before I start reading, I want to apologize about this being late. I was supposed to do this last Sunday, to keep this weekly, to try and catch us up to at least season 1 of 99 Geek, but I didn't get to it because I was busy working on a writing binge. I was binging, finishing a new chapter, so like way down the line, like I would say we have 50 chapters between here and there of books. Multiple books at this point. As I said, I've got 5 going now, and I every month is a different book. So last month I just finished writing a chapter about a journalist who was trying to get her big break reporting in Iraq, and gets in a bunch of trouble that's more than she can handle. So that's fun. And that chapter will be coming out at the end of the month, but there's a free excerpt now available on my blog, so that's cool. On top of that, now we're doing this, so remember you can check out my stuff at 99geek.ca. Right now we're focusing on A Suburban Fantasy is the name of this book. It's a story about a teenage girl who gets turned into a vampire against her will. Previously on this book, because chapter 1 was not the first chapter, as one might assume would be logical. No, it was actually chapter 0. Previously, Lily was a teenage girl in the 1980s in Detroit who got turned into a vampire against her will and was murdered horribly. And that was how it began. So now, chapter 1. That's Not My Name is the name of the chapter. Lily didn't know how long she'd been sitting at that bus stop. It had begun to feel like she was waiting for a bus that had decided not to come. It was night, and the moon hung high above her head, as full as it ever got. The wind blew up a chill that ran through her spine, but she ignored it best she could, and pulled her sweater tighter against her skin. A cute girl, no older than 16, sat down beside her. The girl was short, at most 5'3". She had long black hair and a beautiful face. Her features seemed almost Asian, though her skin was a pale white. "Been waiting long?" asked the new girl. She was shy, her voice was quiet and sweet. "Years," muttered Lily gloomily. "Maybe you only just missed it," the new girl suggested. "Maybe," Lily repeated, unconvinced. The new girl introduced herself. "I'm Rachel," she said softly. "Lily." They sat quietly for what seemed like forever while the bus was still nowhere to be found. The street was barren, void of any signs of life, except for the two girls and a flying shark that swam through the air past them, humming to itself. Rachel looked up at the clouds and studied them with an innocent curiosity. "Those clouds look weird," she said to no one in particular. Lily looked up at the sky, seeing the bumpy ridges she recognized from before, when she'd been younger. She would cloud watch with her dad. "You see those clouds over there?" her father had said to her time and again. "Mackerel sky, not 3 days dry." "It'll rain soon," Lily said aloud to Rachel. The shark turned to Rachel and grinned, a large toothy grin. "Try not to step in a poodle," it joked, mouth flopping ridiculously with each syllable. "Wait a minute. Sharks don't fly." ... Rachel woke up in a sweat. It was raining outside. Coincidence? As her eyes adjusted to the morning light streaming through her window, she felt her comfort level rise in the familiar surroundings of her home. Something about her dream had put her at a considerable level of unease. Maybe it was the mysterious girl she had never seen before. What was the girl's name? Lily? And what had the girl been wearing? Lily had looked like an extra straight out of the movie Flashdance. Sliding off her bed, Rachel grabbed her iPhone from the dresser. It was still early. Her mom wouldn't be up for another hour. Rachel's small room was painted a putrid pink, like she was drowning in a sea of Pepto-Bismol. She hated the color as much as her brother Jacob, but when it came to choosing rooms, there was no contest. She had meant to paint the walls black ever since moving in, but it had been over a year, and she liked to procrastinate. Didn't make things any easier that her mom didn't necessarily approve of the color, and refused to help in any way. Rachel wasn't goth or anything close, but she did appreciate the color black. She did a lot of art, and preferred doing sketches with pencil than colored paints. With only black and white, the emphasis drastically changed from what to color to what to leave empty. White space. In the school's knitting club, which Rachel felt a little embarrassed to admit she was a part of, she was the only girl who ever touched the black yarn. She'd seen a number of young kids wearing the most adorable hats with bunny ears. Inspired, she knit a pair of black and pink cat ears onto her favorite toque, and never since left home without it. But she didn't reach for it yet. Today wasn't like any other day. It was every student's most dreaded date in September, the first day of school. It wasn't going to be as bad as last year. At least that was what Rachel kept telling herself. Starting high school last year had been one of the scariest moments of her life. She might have even cried, but this year, she'd already made friends and knew the school. And still, the butterflies were causing all kinds of unpleasantness in her stomach. She opened her bedroom door and stumbled across the hall into the bathroom. Catching a glance of herself in the mirror, she frowned at her bedhead. Her long black hair was all tangled together and matted against her fair pale skin. Like any girl, Rachel was far from perfection. She wished she were taller, wished her eyes were bluer, or even any blue at all. Wished her breasts were as developed as other girls her age. However, she did have very fair skin, which beat Dacia's acne any day of the week. Rachel brushed her teeth with growing vigor, relieved to be free of the absolutely horrible taste she'd woken up with. Half of waking up was a clean mouth. The other half was a brilliantly warm shower. She slipped out of her baggy white t-shirt and Sailor Moon pajama bottoms and stepped under the relaxing warm water. It was a long time before she got out again, wrapping a towel around herself and getting to the door only to find her brother waiting impatiently on the other side. He had one hand on his crotch and the other holding a Nintendo DS. "Finally!" he said irritably, shuffling past her in a hurry to get to the toilet. "I've been hedgehogging for days." Rachel crinkled her nose in disgust and made for her room. Closing the door behind her, Rachel grabbed her phone and found The Listening by The Lights. Remember, this was 2014. In her playlist. Dropping her iPhone on a dock, she started to get dressed. It was still raining outside and was probably colder than the season would allow. Rachel hated the cold and chose to wear dark jeans instead of shorts. She pulled a tight white t-shirt over her head and then accessorized with a black vest and a pair of fingerless gloves that stretched past her elbows and, if you haven't already guessed by now, were black. She spotted a volume of her favorite Japanese comic, or manga, lying by her bed. She'd been reading it when she fell asleep, and it told the tale of a university student who finds a computer shaped like a pretty girl in the garbage. They form a relationship, and it totally wasn't as lame as it sounded. Rachel supposed she liked it so much because she could relate to the computer. For a long while, the only word the android could speak was chi. Rachel knew exactly how it felt not to be able to say what she wanted to say to a cute guy, or almost anyone. She was chronically shy. It was a problem she tried to work on, but she'd made few strides. She wanted to ask for help, but even the thought of telling someone else made her blush in embarrassment. Picking up the book, she forced it into her overcrowded bookshelf filled to bursting with manga and comics and graphic novels. She'd asked her mom for another bookshelf to expand to, but her mother didn't approve of her use of the shelves for her comics. There was a lot her mother didn't approve of, and there was little chance of changing her mind on any of it. Finally, after grabbing her bag and stuffing a notebook and iPhone inside, she threw on her hat and made her way downstairs to the kitchen. The counter extended around one side of the kitchen and then through the middle as a kind of island. There were stools set up so that they could eat at the counter while their mom cooked. Because of the stools, the kitchen table was almost never used. Rachel's mom put buttered toast and apple slices on a plate and dropped it in front of her. Her mom, Hannah Lynn, was fully Japanese and was raising her 2 kids with her longtime boyfriend, Eric Smith. Neither believed in marriage, nor did they believe in giving up their surnames, so they were common law, and Rachel's full name was Rachel Lynn Smith. Rachel's brother had gone downstairs before her, but hadn't touched his food yet. His hands and eyes were still glued to his DS. "Would you put that thing down and eat something?" complained their mother. Rachel already knew it was no use. Jacob was always playing one game or another. Psychiatrists blamed ADD, but Rachel had started to wonder if that was just their excuse for everything. "I'm on the final boss," Jacob explained. "If I defeat Golbez, then I stop the spread of evil through the land. I'll be a hero." "Jacob," Rachel's dad started to say as he came into the kitchen. Rachel looked up from her bacon, curious to see if her dad might actually lecture his son for once. "Golbez isn't the final boss," he told Jacob, wiping the smile from his son's face. "Are you serious?" Jacob exclaimed. "What about the king or the summoners, the dwarves? He's been pulling all the strings." "And Zemus has been pulling his strings." Rachel dropped her eyes to her plate, struck quite suddenly by the incredible lameness that was her family. Her mother was the only normal one, a secretary for some rich CEO. She almost single-handedly provided for their family. While she worked, Rachel's dad wrote fiction. He'd only managed to publish a few pieces, and none had ever garnered much success. There was a knock at the door, and Rachel's dad, who had already sat down at the counter, gave Rachel a look as if it were her job to answer it. "What about Jacob?" she asked in protest. Almost in response, Jacob exclaimed, "He just cast doom on my mage!" Her dad ignored her and looked over at Jacob's screen. "Cast slow, son. It'll give you more time." The doorbell rang. Getting off her stool, being so short she had to drop a good half a meter to the floor, Rachel dragged her feet to the front hall and opened the door. It was Ian. He was soaking wet and standing on her front porch. "Hey," she said quietly as she lowered her head so as to hide behind her bangs. Ian was her best friend, though she hadn't seen him since her birthday in July. He had short brown hair and nice blue eyes. "Hey," he said back, noticing her gloves. He asked, "Did you make those yourself?" Yeah, she replied quietly. Ian was taller than Rachel, and also a little chunkier. He wasn't fat, but he wasn't the matchstick everyone in her family seemed to be. He was also really nice, perhaps the nicest guy she'd ever known, not that she made a habit of talking to many guys. Rachel wasn't sure how he'd put up with being her friend. She'd grown somewhat more comfortable with him, enough to string sentences together, but she still couldn't make stimulating conversation. If it weren't for their many shared interests, she'd have nothing to talk to him about. Come in," she told him, and he did. All last year, he would show up at their house before school, looking to walk with her. Rachel had to admit that Ian put a lot more work into their friendship than she did, and she was eternally grateful. His house was the same distance away as the school, though in completely the other direction, which meant he had to go extremely out of his way every day. Sitting back in front of her plate, Rachel watched as Ian grabbed a chair from the kitchen table and pulled up beside her. Despite the chair being much shorter than her stool, Ian was tall enough to sit easily at her level. "Good morning, Ian," Rachel's mom said with a smile. "You're soaking wet." "I'm all right," he said with a shrug. "The rain has pretty much stopped. I'll be dry by the time I get to class." "Well, I'm glad you made the walk," Rachel's mother continued on, throwing Ian a towel. "Rachel really missed you this summer." Rachel lowered her head to her plate and took a bite of toast. It was just like her mom to be horrifically embarrassing. "Have you eaten?" asked her mom. Ian shook his head. Rachel's mom put her hands on her hips. "Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. It's been proven to help cognitive function and memory retention." "Proven by who?" Rachel's father asked playfully as his wife gave him a look and dropped a plate of bacon and eggs in front of Ian. "Thanks, Mrs. Lynn." Without looking at the clock, Rachel whispered to Ian, "Can you take that to go?" She wasn't necessarily excited about going to school, but she did want to get it over with. Sooner they were on their way, the less time she'd have to sit there dreading the inevitable. Rachel's mom looked at the clock. "I'd better be going too," she said in between hurried bites. Deciding she'd had enough, Mrs. Lynn dropped her fork on her plate and kissed Rachel's dad on the cheek before grabbing her case and making for the door. "You'll have to do the dishes," she called back to him, "and take out the garbage." Rachel's mom didn't have much problem with doing most of the supporting in the family. She was always on Dad's case to do the chores around the house. Sometimes, Rachel had to admit, her dad felt more like another brother than a father figure. Ian wolfed down the rest of his plate before taking both his and Rachel's to the sink. They left out the front door and watched Rachel's mom drive away. "Your mom totally looks like an Asian Ally McBeal," said Ian as they started off. Rachel ignored him and turned to give her townhouse one last glance. "Come on," Ian said, pulling her attention back to the sidewalk. They walked for a number of blocks, and the houses on either side of them grew from small townhouses to larger suburban homes. Oakville was a Stepford housewives kind of quiet suburb. All the lawns were greener than green, and there were smiling pedestrians on the sidewalks, walking their dogs pretty much at every hour of the day. They passed a large house with white garage doors just as a tall, scrawny boy was strutting down the driveway. His name was Andrew, and he had glasses with a blue Superman t-shirt over his gray jeans. Andrew had been friends with Ian since they met in their first year of high school. That made Rachel friends with him almost by proxy. "Ian," Andrew said, raising his fist, "did you do it?" Ian shook his head, a smile spreading across his lips. "I was so close, dude," he told the geek. "That damn water temple gets me every time." "Almost doesn't cut it," said Andrew as Ian pounded his fist. "You have to pay up, dude." Ian pulled a 20 from his pocket and slapped it in Andrew's open hand. "Well played, sir." "Gambling again?" said a tall, muscular teen with buzzed hair and wearing military camo. "Hey, Jason," Rachel said, trying to keep in the conversation this time. "At ease," Jason told her. He was a strange boy, really into the military. Still, he'd been friends with Andrew for years. "I thought I was going to be included in old bets from now on," Jason said to Andrew and Ian. "He bet me he could play every Zelda game this summer," Andrew explained to Jason. Jason crossed his arms judgmentally. "That sounds like a waste of time," he told them in his deep voice. "You could have been working out and doing chores. Responsibility, not laziness, is what separates a soldier from other men." "All right, Jason," Andrew said. "Did you get to shoot any guns this summer?" "Yes, actually," Jason admitted. "I got to fire my grandfather's Walther P-38 at a target and then later went hunting with a beautiful rifle, a Remington. Shot a deer with it." "That's horrible!" Rachel exclaimed, her quiet voice barely heard over a passing car. The car was a hybrid. "You don't know how it feels to have a trigger up your..." Okay. You don't know how it feels to have a trigger up against your finger. I was going in a different direction with that. Alright. Jason insisted, it's the greatest thrill in the world. You ever wonder if perhaps you were meant to be born American? Ian asked. Are you kidding me? Jason snapped angrily. The thought would never cross my mind. It was true. Like any military boy, Jason was unwaveringly patriotic. At this point, they had made it to the main road. They had to cross their line to get to their high school, and it was at that crossing that the last member of their group joined them. At last we shall have our revenge, Bilal said to his friends. Bilal was the palest brown person Rachel had ever met, and looked somewhat ridiculous with his baggy basketball shorts and jersey. Despite being incredibly geeky like the rest of them, Bilal was a big sports fan. It gave him something to talk to the cool kids about. His favorite sport was basketball, but he was only 5'6", taller than Rachel, but still far too short to be any good at the game. Who are we revenging again? Andrew asked, pretending to be deep in thought. Tanya Dayton, Bilal said with fire in his eyes. Because she beat you last year? Ian asked. I should have been president, Bilal told them. I could have been a great president. I voted for you, Andrew told Bilal, putting an arm around his friend's shoulder. Did you all print out your schedules? Ian asked, changing the topic to school. He pulled a card from his pocket and said, I've got gym first period. He made a puking motion. Gym is important, Jason droned on. Keeps us strong and weeds out the weak. Hawk! Bilal exclaimed. He knew he was one of the weak. I have gym first thing too, remarked Rachel with a quick check to her schedule. With Mr. Carnally? Asked Ian. Rachel nodded. She'd never had a male gym teacher before. Co-ed gym! Exclaimed Andrew. Tanya Dayton in short shorts and a tight t-shirt. I think this is the first year I've ever been excited for physical activity. Just don't get too excited, said Jason with a slap on Andrew's back. You'll be wearing shorts too, you know. Where's your schedule? Ian asked Jason, changing the subject. I didn't need to print it, Jason said with a confident grin. Memorized it last night. Andrew handed his schedule to Ian, who compared them. We have all the same classes, he said. I have economics where you have drama, but other than that... Andrew took back his schedule forcefully and said, Wow, that sounds incredibly lame and boring. Not as boring as drama, argued Ian. He looked to Rachel for support. Right, Rachel? Rachel looked at him with surprise. Huh? Sorry. I took drama too, she admitted. Ian's jaw dropped. I just thought, he said. What? 'Cause she's half Asian? Joked Bilal. You racist. Ian sighed to himself. I guess I'm taking economics alone. Nope, said Jason. You're taking it with me. Everyone stared at Jason in surprise. Drama is useless in the real world, he explained. Bunch of pansies running around in tights. Money is what makes the world go round. You'll understand that when you grow up. As they approached their school, they could see its large glass front shine bright with the light of the morning sun creeping gently through the rain clouds. Excuse me. I really should have gotten some water, but I didn't, so that wasn't part of the book. The school had been built only recently, with a lot of glass and a large entrance hall, right across from the front doors. Oops. Period. The school had been built only recently with a lot of glass and a large entrance hall. Right across from the front doors was a large staircase leading up, with halls branching out on either side. On the immediate right was the front office, and the left was the cafeteria. The school hadn't changed at all since Rachel had last seen it. Well, that wasn't entirely true. There was a banner hanging from the ceiling, welcoming new students, and the floor seemed a little more polished. Beyond that, it was exactly as she remembered. The gym was in the middle of the school. In fact, there were windows looking in on the gym all along the second floor. Walking around and behind the stairway past a number of benches, they found one of the many entrances to the gym and stepped inside. The gym was empty, and they decided it would be best to get changed before the announcements. If they were lucky, they'd still be in the changing rooms when the national anthem started and they wouldn't have to stand. Don't be selfish, Jason said to the rest of them. "You gotta show some pride for your country after all the country's done for you." Everyone ignored him and made for the locker rooms. Rachel went alone into the girls' room, only to find they hadn't been the first ones there after all. Daisha and Alice were getting dressed at one corner, and Rachel deliberately picked a locker as far from them as possible. "That BMW I had last year was so lame, right?" said Daisha to Alice, completely ignoring Rachel. "After I got my G2, my mom totally bought me a Mustang. It's yellow and awesome. If you ask me after school sometime, maybe I'll give you a ride home." Daisha was a bitch. There was no other way to explain her. Maybe Brat was good too. Stuck up, cruel, evil, ugly fat cow would all work, but perhaps Rachel was biased. Daisha thought she was so cool, so much better than everyone else, and she didn't hesitate to tell everyone. In fact, she never stopped talking ever, and if the words coming out of her mouth weren't how awesome she was, they were how awful someone else was. You wanted to always be in her good books, because if you weren't, she'd make your life hell anytime she could. And once you were in her bad books, there was no getting out. Rachel was in her bad books. Alice wasn't necessarily Daisha's friend. Rachel wasn't even sure Daisha had any real friends. Just people who put up with her, and people who didn't. Alice was one of those who did. She was a drama geek, a social circle led by the school president, Tanya Dayton. Yes, their school had been taken over by drama geeks. "I wish my daddy would buy me a car," groaned Alice. She had red hair and pale skin. She also had big blue eyes and often seemed to care quite a lot what others thought of her. Daisha finally noticed Rachel. "I see you didn't bother getting a tan this summer. I've never understood people who care so little about their personal appearance." It only ever took one sentence from Daisha to remind Rachel why she hated the brown-haired bitch. There were so many things Rachel wanted to say, like how Daisha was fat and ugly, and her tan didn't make her face any easier to look at. Still, she kept her mouth shut, as she always kept her mouth shut. Alice looked like she was going to say something, but Daisha cut her off. "Oh, I don't blame you, of course. You have an excuse. I know if I had red hair, I'd shoot myself, or at least dye it. But I think you're really, really brave for wearing it so boldly." She chose then to walk out, leaving behind Alice. No, Xbox, go to TV. Bad Xbox. No. Where was I? Oh my lord. Xbox, stop listening. This is why you don't get a Kinect. You can't get a Kinect. They don't exist anymore. And you should, but you can't. But you should, because it's awesome. Alright, where was I? She chose then to walk out, leaving behind Alice as ruffled in the feathers as Rachel. "Why didn't you say anything to her?" she asked Rachel. "Or, ever stick up for yourself?" "You could have said something," Rachel said quietly to her locker. "Screw that," Alice said on her way out. "It's not my job to stand up for the less fortunate. She already hates you. It's not like she could hate you anymore." Rachel wasn't so sure of that, but she didn't say anything. Instead, she slid into the white and blue gym uniform they all had to wear, but kept her gloves on. She was cold, and didn't see why the teacher might make her take them off. At the last moment, she decided to grab her hat, too. Students were all sitting on the bleachers, waiting for the teacher to show. Rachel spotted her friends at the top of the bleachers. "Hey," Ian said as she sat down. "You okay?" "Daisha was a bitch," Rachel told him. Ian nodded. "That sounds like her." There was a chime signaling the start of the announcements. Tanya Dayton's voice rang through the PA with a sort of fire, and everyone went quiet. Her words were slow, her pauses meaningful. "If you hear the dogs, keep going. If you see the torches in the woods, keep going. If they're shouting after you, keep going. Don't ever stop. Keep going. If you want a taste of freedom, keep going." Harriet Tubman wasn't Canadian, but she led thousands of slaves to our country despite ever-present danger and impossible odds. She once said that every dream begins with a dreamer. She believed everyone has within them the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars and change the world. Tanya paused. "I'm a dreamer, and I have a dream for another great school year, Please stand for the playing of O Canada." Rachel looked around and noticed that no one had stood up besides Jason. She certainly wasn't going to stand if she didn't have to. So of course Mr. Carnally chose that moment to finally show his face to the class. "Anyone not standing in 5 seconds gets a detention," he said, voice sharp like a drill sergeant. He was an older man, and looked as if he'd served in a war, though Rachel couldn't begin to guess which war that had been. Everyone jumped to their feet. As the song droned on, Rachel found herself looking all over the gym for anything to take her attention away from the song she'd heard every day of her public school career. Too much emphasis, she felt, was put on borders and countries and nationalities. They were all human, and they were all living on a planet called Earth. Beyond that, she didn't think anything else should matter. Her eyes settled on Jason, who was standing so straight at attention he almost seemed like a statue. One hand was over his heart, the other was saluting the flag hanging over the door. The anthem ended, and everyone dropped like rocks into their seats. Anyone I catch talking gets an immediate detention," said Mr. Carnally. "Wow, this guy's a dick," Andrew whispered. Being in the back row, they would be able to get away with a little talking. "I heard he's like the geek's worst nightmare," said Bilal, trying hard as he could not to move his lips. "They say, a couple years ago, he terrorized one kid into committing suicide." "That can't be true," whispered Ian. "He'd be fired, wouldn't he?" Rachel leaned forward and asked, "How could you prove it?" "Wasn't the kid named Greg or something?" suggested Andrew. Rachel nodded to herself, as she remembered hearing someone mention something of the sort outside the teacher's lounge once. The announcements dragged on for a decade, Rachel closing her eyes and felt... The announcements dragged on for a decade. Rachel closed her eyes and felt her consciousness slipping away when the announcements came to an abrupt end and Carnally's voice brought her back to reality. "You're all probably wondering why the school has combined girls and boys into one class." That was indeed something Rachel was wondering. "There's been a women's equality movement on the school board," explained Carnally with limited respect. "They think anything a guy can do, a girl can do just as well. So, they're pushing to combine men and women's sports, and it all starts with gym. So now boys and girls will get to compete together." And remember, this was written in 2014. I don't think still this is a thing, but it should be. There was a resounding cheer from all the boys. They were all looking forward to showing off in front of girls in tight They were all looking forward to showing off in front of girls in tight t-shirts. The girls weren't as enthusiastic, and, in fact, there were a number of groans. It wasn't necessarily that they couldn't compete with the boys, more that they weren't interested in contributing that much of an effort. There was a pause, and Tanya ran into the gym already in her gym clothes. She was tall, had brown hair, blue eyes, and a way of attracting the attention of every man in the gym. It wasn't her makeup or her, impressive cup size. Carnally waited for her to sit down beside Alice, and then he pulled out a whistle. "We're going to start today's lesson with 20 laps around the gym." Ian's jaw dropped. "What?" Carnally blew his whistle. Nobody moved. He crossed his arms and said, "Starting now." People slowly started getting to their feet and running. No one seemed very into it, besides perhaps Jason. "Come on, man," he exclaimed. "Left, right, left, right, left, right. Repeat after me. I don't know, but it's been said." Nobody repeated after him. Carnally was still blowing his whistle and yelling at people to move faster, mainly them. "Come on, you sad excuse for a class. Tell me, is this a co-ed class?" Okay, maybe that voice is a little too hard. Oh, I do have water. It's even cold. Oh, that was so useful. Okay, where was I? "Come on, you sad excuse for a class. Tell me, is this a co-ed class or am I just teaching old girls?" Rachel didn't necessarily mind Jim being co-ed, but she could have done without all the sexist remarks. Ian spoke slowly between deep gasps for breath as they made their first lap. That man is evil. Rachel's legs burned as she tried to keep up with Jason. Jason seemed to be jogging effortlessly and had no problem staying at the head of their pack. Bilal, on the other hand, covered the rear as he stumbled along after them, clutching his gut. They were lapped by Tanya and a group of drama geeks. Keep it up, you're doing great, she said to them as she gave them a thumbs up. Did she just talk to us? Asked Andrew. Ian tried to shrug, but it looked more like a sweaty shiver as he gasped for breath. It always takes a couple days for people to remember we're not cool. Bilal was panting and starting to lag behind. I don't feel like I'm doing great, he said in one great breath. That wasn't one great breath. They weren't the slowest people in class, and that had to count for something. I mean, Daisha wasn't even running. Why would I run when I can just drive? God, I'm sorry. Let me start that line over. I'm really tongue-tied today. I'm sorry. I realized I didn't even brush my teeth. That's probably why. I've got that ugly taste I talked about earlier in this chapter. Alright. Alright. Why would I run when I can just drive anywhere I want to go? She asked anyone who passed her by. No one cares, mumbled Rachel after the 14th time. Jeez, even Ian is running, Bilal wheezed between breaths, and he doesn't even run. Like, not even to make it to the other side of the street before getting hit. It's a life choice, Ian admitted. I don't know, but I've been told, continued Jason, who hadn't realized nobody was singing with him. Carnali's butt is mighty old, finished Andrew. Ian shot him a high five. By the time they were nearing 20 laps, Rachel's insides were hurting. Every breath pierced her lungs like a dagger, and her legs were jelly. When they crossed the finish line, most of the class had already finished, and had been given a 5-minute rest. Daisha was on her 6th lap. Thanks for joining us, girls, Carnali said with a mean-looking grin to Ian and the rest of the gang. You should all be ashamed of yourselves. Why? Asked Ian as he pointed to Rachel. She is a girl. All right, class. For the rest of the period, we will be playing dodgeball. There were some cheers among the students, but most people were too tired to make any noise at all. Split yourselves into 2 teams. You have until I return with the balls. He started towards the equipment room. Couldn't we have a couple minutes of rest? Andrew asked. Carnelli ignored him. Within minutes, there were 2 sides and 5 balls in the middle. This isn't going to be your normal dodgeball, hollered Carnelli from the sidelines. When you get hit, you don't get to sit down like a wuss. You run laps until the end of the period. Everyone stopped what they were doing to stare at him in shock. Rachel hoped she wasn't hit. She didn't want to run any more laps, ever again. Have fun. Carnelli blew his whistle, and there was a mad dash for the balls. It was pure insanity as balls were whipped back and forth, and people were being knocked out left and right. A ball whizzed past Rachel's head and snapping her out of her daze. Ian's hand grabbed Rachel's arm, and he pulled her to the back of their side. They joined Jason, Andrew, and Bilal, hiding in relative safety of the back line. We can survive this, yelled Jason over the chaos. Bilal was cowering behind a chunky guy named Kyle Blunt. Aha! I don't see how, Bilal said with a whimper. Kyle was hit with a ball and left the field. Aha! Whimpered Bilal again as he no longer had a human shield. Rachel noticed a girl, was it Daisha, aiming right at her. She was only just able to dodge the ball, surprised to see it thrown harder than she expected Daisha able to throw. We're going to get killed if we don't go on the offensive, Ian yelled at Jason. Jason spotted a ball land near him. I'm gonna need a distraction, he told them. Andrew nodded and ran up the court. One guy was armed and he seemed dangerous. Guess what I did this summer? Andrew asked the boy tauntingly. I built a time machine, went back to 9 months before you were born, and slept with your mom. The boy turned angrily on Andrew and threw his ball with what seemed like every ounce of his considerable strength. Andrew dived to the floor, but there was a high-pitched scream from behind him. It was Bilal, and he'd been hit. Bilal Bilal's based on a real person, by the way. No! Ian yelled dramatically, also based on a real person. As Bilal limped off, everyone was so distracted by the whole situation, no one noticed Jason grab a ball and knock out the jock Andrew had been taunting. Soon Jason, Andrew, Ian, and Rachel were the only ones left on their side. They were facing off against three of the largest guys Rachel had ever seen. It didn't seem too fair, and, making matters worse, the other team had all the balls. A hailstorm of balls rained down on them as Ian pushed Rachel to the floor, and Ian and Rachel were both hit. As they stalked off the court to join Bilal, Rachel felt a sinking in her stomach. They'd lost. Then she remembered she really didn't care all that much, and the feeling went away. One of the boys on the other team saw the ball. Shooting her a glance, he flaunted the ball menacingly and smiled. She closed her eyes and waited for the inevitable impact, but, though she heard the sound, the impact never came. She opened her eyes again to see Jason. He'd stepped in front of her and caught the ball. Now, they were even. "You get the balls and I'll get the bad guys," said Jason to her. Rachel wasn't going to mention that they weren't fighting Nazis, but instead she nodded and looked for a second ball while he took aim with the first. Rachel immediately noticed a ball rolling towards the line. One of the boys on the other side was waiting for the ball to get within reach. She had to get there first. She dove for the ball, as Jason, who noticed as well, threw his ball and got the kid out. Rachel grabbed the ball just as it hit the line and threw it to Jason. He caught it and threw it hard as he could at the only remaining guy on their team. The guy caught the ball. Jason was out. What was Rachel to do? She was alone. She had no hope. "You have to win," Jason told her as he dragged his heels off the court. "Win it for your country." Rachel rolled her eyes and then quickly dodged the ball thrown at her head with a shriek. She had to admit, she did have one advantage. She now had all the balls. Grabbing a ball, she moved to the line and shot the boy a glare. He grinned. His name was Danny, and he was a real dick. He liked to pick on others. He also liked piercings, and, most disgusting of all, ear spacers. Those really gross ones that increase one's earlobe to 10 times its normal size. Looking at him from across the line was all it took to make Rachel throw up a little in her mouth. I need a voice for this guy. Come on, he goaded her. Give me your best shot. No, that's, or he did that voice. Come on, he goaded her. Give me your best shot. I won't even move. Ha ha ha. I don't know why he's Arnold Schwarzenegger, but he's Arnold Schwarzenegger now. A sneer grew up the side of his face. His mistake. She pulled back, and with every ounce of strength she could muster, threw the ball at Danny. True to his word, he didn't move, but he didn't have to. The ball sailed wide, striking the wall behind him at an awkward angle. He laughed. And laughed. And laughed. Ah ha 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 ha. See, he said in between fits of laughter. Ha 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 ha. That was awful. Your spaghetti arms couldn't even throw straight. He started to calm down a bit. I'm serious though. Girls are good for only one thing. What he didn't notice, while he was bringing down more than half the human race, was that the ball was now bouncing back. It bumped lightly into his buttocks and bounced away. His eyes widened in disbelief. "You're out!" yelled Carnally from the sidelines. "That little Asian girl wins. Class dismissed." Danny stormed from the gym as everyone stopped running to try and comprehend what had just happened. Rachel just gave a meek smile. ... I need to come up with a better sound for scene cuts. Something like shra, shoop, swoosh. No, it's not The Big Bang Theory. It does kind of feel like Big Bang Theory sometimes, like high school edition, because of all the teenage comedy, I guess. Alright, anyway, next scene. Fade 2. As lunch hit, the group gathered together in the cafeteria. Rachel sat down with a salad while the rest waited in line for today's special, hamburgers. "That salad must suck balls," Jason said bluntly, as he sat down on the bench beside her. The tables were like indoor sat on the bench across from her. That couldn't matter. Oh no. The tables were like indoor picnic tables, but made of metal, and came with insane folding action. Rachel stabbed a tomato drenched in Caesar dressing and bit down on it. At Jason's continued look, she shook her head and swallowed. I spelled Caesar wrong there. Let me just quickly change that. Nothing to see here. Move along. Alright, anyway. At Jason's continued look, she shook her head and swallowed. It's alright. Ian tried to salvage conversation as he joined them. Do you ever miss eating meat? Rachel didn't respond, but shook her head as she took another bite. At least your salad wasn't greasy and disgusting, and kinda smelly. Andrew pointed his burger at Bilal, who also got the special. Why are you eating that? Isn't it against your religion? Aha! No, Bilal said through a full mouth. I can't eat pork because it's a dirty animal. Beef is okay. That's actually an urban legend, said Rachel quietly. Pigs are clean unless farmers cover them in mud and kill them unceremoniously. Aha! The current doesn't mean dirty in that way. Jason took a huge bite of his burger and asked with a full mouth, In what way then? I don't know. It's just forbidden, admitted Bilal. Why do you care? What if it's halal pork? Asked Ian. That's like an oxymoron, Bilal said slowly. Andrew swallowed and said, You're an oxymoron. I've never understood halal meat, admitted Rachel quietly. Killing an animal with prayer and stuff is still killing a poor defenseless animal. Just because it's in Allah's name doesn't make killing all right. They'll be sacrificing humans next. Jason put down his hamburger and raised an eyebrow. They did. Remember 9/11? He asked. For God's sakes, Jason! Exclaimed Bilal. Not all Muslims are terrorists. Don't you mean Allah's sake? Asked Ian. Aha! I don't even believe in that halal stuff, Ian admitted to his friends. Part of religion is just taking what you want, what means something to you, and then just forget the stupid stuff. Jason finished his last bite of his burger and took a large drink of his Mountain Dew before saying, So you're not a real Muslim. Bilal dropped his burger angrily and yelled, You know what? Screw you, Jason. You're not a real soldier. Andrew's jaw dropped. Wow. The gloves come off. So, Rachel said quietly, Aren't we going to talk about my epic dodgeball win? What? Asked Bilal. He suddenly remembered. Oh, yeah, good job. It was one game, Jason said nonchalantly. What do you want, a medal? Merchandise licensing negotiations? Yeah, said Andrew with a nod. You didn't exactly blow up the Death Star. Rachel had honestly thought Luke Skywalker faced better odds going down that trench than what she faced in that gym. Right. No, you're right. It was just a game. Sure, when Harry Potter won a Quidditch match, everyone cheered and carried him to the Gryffindor common room, but that's just another reason why she wished she went to Hogwarts. She'd have to remember to add that reason to her list when she got home. Andrew suddenly sat up and wiped his mouth with a napkin. She's here, he said, motioning for everyone to look to the door. It was Tanya Dayton. She wasn't wearing her gym uniform anymore, but instead wore a tight tie-dye t-shirt over beige Bermuda pants. She also had a necklace of very large beads. She came and thanked with one of her many boyfriends, and Alice. Could I have your attention? Tanya asked as she climbed onto a table. No one paid her any mind. You have my attention, other than Andrew. You have my attention, Andrew yelled up at her. Tanya frowned and tried to ignore him. Please, people, she yelled as loud as she could. I have an announcement to make. Ian leaned over and whispered in Rachel's ear, Doesn't she torture us enough after O Canada? Rachel didn't think so lowly of Tanya. Sure, she was technically the enemy in the way that the cool kids were always the enemy of the uncool. Ian, Andrew, and Jason believed in that never-ending war more than others. After the school president was ignored for a second time, Tanya finally decided to give up. Shrugging, she handed a poster to her friend Peter and dropped from the table. As Peter put the poster on the door, Tanya sat down across from Rachel and the guys. Hey guys, what's up? God damn. My Tanya sounds like a transvestite, I'm sorry. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just not at all the kind of character she... Oh. Anyway, she's not a tranny. She is a cis female. Anyway, let's just focus. After the school present was ignored for a second time, Tanya finally decided to give up. Shrugging, she handed a poster to her friend Peter and dropped from the table. As Peter put the poster on the door, Tanya sat down. Oh, I already said all this. Hey guys, what's up? Now I'm doing it on purpose, I'm sorry. Jason shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Bilal put his head down and blatantly ignored her. Ian shot Tanya a slight smile, but said nothing. Hi, I'm Andrew. No shit, Tanya said, shooting Andrew a disturbed look. We've had a billion classes together. I know all your names. We have a lot in common, Andrew told her. There's no reason we can't be friends. Or more than friends. Yeah, there is, Tanya refuted. Your Valentine last year, for one. How'd you like it? Andrew asked. I think I set it on fire, Tanya admitted with a little thought. Sorry, I don't want to be the Phoenix to your Cyclops. Screw her, Bilal told Andrew. You're way better than her, and she doesn't even deserve the chance to turn you down. Everyone threw Bilal a rough look. You're not supposed to give him that speech till after I leave, Tanya explained to Bilal as he was about to open his mouth again. It's cool, Andrew said to Bilal, no stranger to rejection. So, Rachel asked quietly to Tanya, why are you still here? Tanya smiled at her. I just wanted to let you know about an awesome party in Toronto this Friday. Everyone's invited. It's like my big beginning of school party. Aha! No one is interested in your cool party, Bilal told her angrily. Again, everyone shot Bilal a look. Will there be beer? Asked Jason. It's a bar, said Tanya. I really gotta find a better voice for Tanya. I'm not very good at female voices. It's a bar. It's a bar. It's a bar. What, like a female version? No, that's horrible too. I'm wasting precious podcast moments. I'm sorry, by the way, to people listening to the podcast. Like, at least people who are watching video of this are able to, like, see me make subtle cues so that they know that, like, between dialogue and non-dialogue, between characters and stuff like that. But, like, if you're just listening to this, it must be so hard to follow along. I've been stuttering so much and screwing up, and I'm sorry for being so tongue-tied. As I said, I should have prepared more and maybe showered. Definitely be doing that stuff after. Next time, I'll try to be better off. Here, let me drink some water. So, Jason asked, will there be beer? And then Tanya responded, it's a bar. There'll be beer, but they don't serve to minors or anything, what with it being illegal, so you'll have to bring fake IDs. Tanya got up to leave, but stopped. She pointed to Andrew and said, he's not invited. Oh, what? Andrew yelled sarcastically at her. I'm not everyone? Aha! How can you show your blah. Aha! You can shove your party somewhere dark, Bilal told her loudly. Ian crossed his arms. I doubt you'll see any of us at your stupid party. We don't all need alcohol to have fun. Jason snorted and said, speak for yourself. Ian strummed his fingers on the table as Rachel matched his gaze. Just another way in which we're not Jason's stride, Ian said to Rachel. Remind me to add that to my list. Tanya left to spread the word to another table, and Ian looked across to Bilal. Good job standing up to her, he congratulated. Bilal looked up from his drink. Aha, what do you mean? He's right, Jason said, poking fun. You were yelling at her and shit. It was awesome. Ian nodded. You were acting a little intense. I don't like her, Bilal told them. She's just so much more popular than me, and stupid popular too, with her posters and her lackeys. I want lackeys. Last year, he made a big blockbuster-worthy campaign video with Andrew about defeating Tanya's tyrannical rule, but despite getting 1,000 hits on YouTube, Bilal still lost. 1,000 hits. So 1,000? Should I change my... No, I'll leave it. Fuck it. She's not all bad, mumbled Andrew into his tray. Oh yeah, agreed Jason in his booming voice. I'd tap that. Yeah, added Ian. You could tell it was Ian, but the only one that has a ridiculous whiny voice. And then when you're married and a stay-at-home dad, you can leech a little of her power and popularity for yourself. You just described my family, Rachel whispered to Ian. Aha, I don't need to worry about that, admitted Bilal. My parents are going to hook me up with someone nice when I'm a little older. You mean arranged marriage? Asked Ian. It's better than dating, said Bilal with a smile. Everyone around the table made some sound of disgust. Noticing Bilal's surprised look, Ian began to organize a change in topic. Nothing was more annoying than one of Bilal's rants on arranged marriage. Luckily, the bell rang. Oh, Andrew said, saved by the bell. Ian collected everyone's trays together and made for the garbage. Oh, by the way, bring, bring, bring. Sorry, that's really want to do the sound. Andrew leaned against the table. I have work after school. Can you and Ian walk me? He asked Rachel. Andrew worked a greasy fast food joint. It wasn't the most glorious job, but money was money. It wasn't any worse than the coffee shop where she worked. Do we have to grab your uniform from your house? She asked. Andrew shook his head and smiled. I wore it under my t-shirt. He pulled down the collar of his Superman tee to show off his black and blue work clothes underneath. Ian returned and noticed Andrew's ironic pose with the Superman tee pulled down and the black and... Yeah. Nice, he said nonchalantly. ... Science class was their last class of the day. Mr. O'Byrne had the tables of his class organized in groups of 6. Ian, Andrew, Jason, Bilal, and Rachel all sat together with one of Bilal's cool friends, Mike Jones. Mike wore baggy jeans and an open button-down over... Mike wore baggy jeans and an open-down... Third time's the charm. Mike wore baggy jeans and an open button-down over a white tee. He also had an expensive pair of shades that he didn't bother to take off for class. Nice shades, Andrew pointed out. Mike leaned back in his chair and handed his shades to Andrew. Try them on, he said. Andrew took off his glasses and put on the shades. Nope, he said, peering around the room. Can't see a thing. Mike shrugged and took them back. Mr. O'Byrne was a cool teacher in the school. Mr. O'Byrne was a cool teacher in the school. He couldn't be older than 28, ruggedly handsome, and a bit of a geek. He loved having fun in the classroom and joking with his students. He was one of the few teachers at their school who talked to students like equals. All the girls swooned over him. Even Rachel had to admit he was pretty sexy, if a little untidy and rugged with his thick facial stubble. He started the class by introducing himself and handing out textbooks. He then had everyone introduce themselves and tell a story about their summer. Once Mark DeLutis finished telling his particularly boring story, they were done, and Mr. O'Byrne let them off early. No one ever pays attention on their first day, O'Byrne reasoned. Just get started on chapter 1 for next class, and don't tell the vice principal that I let you out early. They followed the class out the door. There was a traffic jam, as 30 kids tried to push one another through one small door. Rachel was amazed at how fast everything just came back. They'd been on break for 3 months, but being back in school with all the same classmates made Rachel feel like she never really left. Life just continued on like it always did. Rachel mentally cursed the butterflies that plagued her that morning, making her first day back so much harder than it needed to be. What are we going to do for an hour and a half? Asked Andrew. There wasn't a whole lot to do. Aha, play basketball? Asked Bilal. He always wanted to play basketball, even though he sucked at it. It was the last thing she wanted to do. By the look on Ian's face, you could only imagine he was about to suggest a fighting game tournament at his place. Oh yeah, let's play some sports, said Jason. You want to join us, Mike? Andrew asked. Sure, why not? Okay, so Jason's voice is oh yeah, let's play some sports, said Jason. You want to join us, Mike? Andrew asked. Sure, why not? Sure, why not? Sure, why not? Oh, sure, why not? Alright, that's the best I can do. They took the stairs down and left the school through the back door. The bike racks were behind the school, and, thanks to the lack of windows on that side, students often came out back there to smoke. On that day, a girl was hanging there trying to light a cigarette. She must have snuck out from class, if she'd even gone at all. She peered out suspiciously at them from under her large hoodie with brown hair poking out at her neck, tired brown eyes, and slightly buck teeth. Rachel immediately recognized her. Rachel remembered her picture from yearbook club last year. One of her jobs had been doing the layout for the graduating class. If Rachel remembered right, this girl had already graduated. She was a super senior, a name coined for people who returned to high school for a 5th year. Anyone have a light? She asked them once she decided they weren't going to tell on her. Andrew pulled out his iPhone from his blue jeans pocket. There's an app for that, he told her, turning on his useless lighter app. Let me guess, the girl said. It's not really going to light my smoke. No, Andrew admitted, but it won't give you cancer either, he added, except for, brain cancer and stuff. But that's unproven. He put his phone to his ear, as if to make a point. The super senior giggled a little. You're funny, she said. Don't encourage him, Ian insisted to the girl. My name's Andrew. Yakety yak, no one cares, Bilal interrupted, pulling ahead to the court. The others slowly turned and joined him. The girl laughed. You should probably go play sports with your friends, she said to Andrew. Rachel watched him stare after them, conflicted. My name's Holly, she said at last. Andrew grinned. Well, Holly, it's been a pleasure meeting you. He started up the hill after them, but looked back to add quickly, Raccoon! Holly laughed again. You too. Alright, that was a quick edit. Andrew caught up with Bilal and punched him in the shoulder. What the hell, dude? Andrew asked. Bilal rubbed his shoulder. Aha! It's not like you were going to get with her, so why waste our time? You really hate girls, huh? Noticed Rachel. Don't you remember how much he hated you? Asked Ian. Rachel hadn't thought about it. One instance from last year did suddenly make sense. She'd asked him for the time, and in response he'd screamed at her for 12 minutes about ex-vice presidential candidate Sarah Palin. I don't know, said Andrew almost to himself. I think she was totally digging me. Jason slapped Andrew on the back. Snap out of it, soldier. That chick was without a doubt high off of something. Probably heroin, muttered Bilal. Wait, what? Asked Andrew. He stopped cold. What do you mean heroin? Where did heroin come from? Bilal shrugged. Aha, did you see the track marks on her arm? No, he insisted. There are no track marks. Did you see track marks? He asked Rachel. Rachel looked around in surprise. No, but I didn't really look for any. She didn't mention the fact that Holly had been wearing sleeves, but instead looked to the ground again and added, She did smell like weed. Andrew gestured to Rachel emphatically. So was it marijuana or heroin? Ian shook his head and gave a wide shrug. Who cares? He asked. It matters, insisted Andrew. No, it doesn't, Jason told him. You don't want a crazy druggy chick. You can catch diseases that way, and they don't shave their legs. You need a real chick. Andrew raised his arms in surprise. Seriously? No one has my back on this, Rachel? Rachel looked around again. What? She asked irritably. She was tired of being pulled into such a stupid conversation. Mike! He turned to Mike, who smiled and put his arms around Andrew's shoulders. Oh, she was hot, dude, he said. And stoner chicks are the best. No fights or stupid drama, ha ha ha. They played basketball for a while. Ian gave up first, but Rachel soon joined him, on the bleachers. Ian played on his DS while Rachel played Scrabble against Andrew on their iPhones. Eventually Mike left to go drink beers with his older brother. As school ended, Jason had to run home or his parents would kill him, and Bilal had to pick up his sister from her elementary school. Ian and Rachel walked with Andrew up the main road to his job. It was only 5 minutes away, but they were sweating by the time they got there. It had warmed up a lot outside since morning. So, what are you doing tonight? Ian asked Rachel. Rachel shrugged. Glee premieres tonight, she admitted. Sounds exciting, he said, sighing to himself. Don't you wish it wasn't so boring around here all the time? Andrew asked Ian. Ian shrugged. Rachel had to admit, it often seemed like nothing cool ever happened in Oakville. Even Tanya's party was being held in Toronto. It was like Oakville made fun illegal. So what? You want to do something after your shift? Ian asked him. Andrew just shrugged. I don't know, man, he said. I can't miss Glee. ... The bus still hadn't come. It was raining heavily now, as Rachel sat completely not alone at the stop. It was just her luck that the stop wasn't sheltered. Everyone on the bench was soaked through. This sucks, Rachel said with a sigh. Her clothes were sticking uncomfortably to her skin, and her hair was probably gross. It was raining so heavily, she felt she was drowning. I need to get my license. Lily just nodded silently. Another girl, further down the bench, asked, a license for what? She had a British accent. Lily and Rachel both looked to the new girl in surprise. She was wearing an intricate dress that was clearly not meant to be worn in the rain. For a car, Rachel replied. Oh, I see. The girl didn't seem any less confused. So, they require licenses to operate horse-drawn carriages now? Rachel and Lily traded a glance. I'm sorry, who are you? Rachel asked. The girl started to stutter and quickly shut her mouth. Rachel looked past her at the 17 other girls sitting on the bench. Not one was over 20 years old. Some were dressed in elaborate dresses like the British lady. Others were dressed more plainly, like the one in trousers and a tri-corner hat. Rachel swore. I'm dreaming again. Lily nodded. I want you to promise me something. A figment of my imagination is asking me for a favor? Rachel asked herself. I'm going insane. No, you're not, Lily told her. Look, I need you to promise me you won't go to Toronto on Friday. Lily's words didn't register for Rachel at first. I'm sorry, she asked after a moment. What? Toronto. I don't want you to go there. Rachel was now thoroughly confused. How do you know about that? Lily wiped the rain from her face with her hand. Can you just promise me? She asked. I was never planning to go, Rachel admitted to her, strangely offended. Well, don't. I wasn't going to. Good. Then don't. The British girl leaned forward, completely ignorant of Rachel and Lily's fight. We're going to cook a flying shark later. Would you like a bite? And that was the end of chapter 1. What does that mean? Why did Rachel's dream warn her about going to Toronto? She wasn't planning to go. Does that mean she's not going to? Or does that mean fate has already decided that she's destined to go? Who knows? You're just going to have to tune in this Sunday to find out. At, 11 o'clock at night. It's going to be a late night readathon, bookathon, book reading. I'm going to read Suburban Fantasy, Chapter 2. It's called Trust. Just a little spoiler for that. It's called Trust. So there's going to be something about trust in there. That's going to be interesting. I apologize that this wasn't very action-packed. As I said, I've gotten much better at writing now than I was then. I've also gotten much different at writing now than I was then. My chapters are a lot more like episodes of TV shows. They're more contained, more with like climaxes, with like setup and then climaxes. This was all set up. This was like set up for what was going to come in the rest of the book. And I kind of wanted, I think with this first chapter, I wanted to show a day in the life of her before shit got crazy. So like this is just, this is her life normal. She's just a geeky girl and, kind of weird and shy and quiet and keeps to herself and has weird friends and they're really cool friends in that weird geeky way. But then from there, and now we'll get to watch all that fall apart. And that'll be fun. And trust me, it gets better. I don't feel like I learned between writing this book and season 1 of 99 Geek. I think I learned during writing this book. So it's also better at the end than it is at the beginning. Like about halfway through my chapters become more self-contained and interesting. But these early ones are definitely focusing on Rachel. Anyway, so that was chapter 1. Thank you for tuning in. Nobody tuned in on Twitch, but that's fine because I would have felt awkward if people were paying attention to this terrible chapter. But I know people have been watching the podcast, and I don't know if people watch this in the archive on Twitch or you can watch it on YouTube. But remember, it's on iTunes. You can subscribe there. If you want to read more before I get the chance to read it to you, then you can subscribe to my Patreon. You can find that at 99geek.ca. There's links to the Patreon. There's also links to my books on Amazon, because I have finished books on Amazon, including this one and some other ones. But if you subscribe for just $1 a month on Patreon, you get access to all of it. The entire library, everything I release and everything I will release, as long as you pay $1 a month. You get to keep gaining access, and it comes in PDF format, so you can download it to your computer and then unsubscribe if you want, if you didn't appreciate it or whatever. And then resubscribe if like a certain chapter comes out that you're interested in, and then download all the other stuff that you missed while you were gone. So you could pay $1 a year, really, and then just download everything, and then check in the next year if you wanted to. That's an idea. I'm not gonna hate you for that, but I do appreciate everything that people do for me. Every dollar you give, every support you give. If you follow me, I'm desperate to build an audience. I don't have an audience right now, and that's my problem. I'm desperate to make it as a writer. You can find me on Twitter at Andrew Gatesy, G as in George, ECZY. You can, there's links to that at 99geek.ca as well. That's 99, not spelt out, geek.ca, which, yeah, should be somewhere on the title or something like that. But besides that, yeah, so this Sunday I will release a new chapter. I felt bad that I didn't release this chapter last Sunday. I apologize about that. I will try to be more strict with that from now on. Yeah, and besides that, you can go to my Twitch stream or YouTube to check out my playthroughs of Spider-Man, my playthroughs of Age of Empires. I've been doing some multiplayer stuff every once in a while. What else? I mean, I haven't done any of this stuff in the past week, which is obviously because I was so busy with my chapter. But yeah, that's all stuff that I've got spinning. Other than that, I've got a weekly blog that's just mostly about television, and I do power rankings of the best TV shows currently on the air. So you can check that out. That's also on my blog is monthly excerpts, free excerpts of the chapter that will be coming out on my 99geek Patreon. So you can check all that out there. Until this Sunday, may the force be with you. Live long and prosper. That's all copyrighted. I apologize. We are the 99%.